Hello, and welcome to episode number 50 of Wrestlerotica, the podcast that combines wrestling and erotica. This week we have two stories to share with you. The first story is entitled, Your Body is My Canvas. In this story, Nikki Bella comes over to Natalya's house to celebrate girls' night. The two then proceed to drink wine and watch movies. As the night progresses, Nikki asks Natalya to paint her nude, which leads to more than painting. The second story is entitled, Work Me Out. In this story, AJ Lee is so infatuated with Seth Rollins that she begins to stalk him. She follows him to the gym, where Rollins admits that he knows what she is up to. Passion then takes over. Without further ado, let's get to this week's stories. This story is entitled, Your Body is My Canvas, and it was written by fanfiction.net user TheGirlInThePinkScarf. Natalya fills 2 glasses with wine. And she checks on the grilled chicken when her doorbell rings. She looks at her watch and it's a few minutes before 9:30 p.m. Nikki isn't known for being punctual, so Natty is surprised that she's on time. She takes off her pink apron as she answers the door. Natalya smiles and hugs Nikki as she invites her inside. Dinner is just about ready. I just have to toss the salad. Just sit on the couch and make yourself at home, Natalya tells her. Okay, Nikki replies. After the salad is ready, Natalya brings the dinner plates into her living room. She places Nikki's food in front of her, and Nikki thanks her for cooking. Natalya has a stack of movies that she picked out to watch, and she lets Nikki choose the first one. Nikki wants to watch The Notebook, and Natty isn't shocked at all. Natty refills their wine glasses halfway through the movie. They sit in comfortable silence as they enjoy the film. Natty looks over and she notices that Nikki is sniffling. Are you crying, Nikki? Natalya asks. Yes! This movie always makes me so emotional, Nikki explains. It is a really heart-wrenching one. Maybe we should watch a comedy next, Natty suggests. I think that's a good idea. I don't know why I picked such a sad movie for girls' night, Nikki says. Bridesmaids is one of Natalya's favorite movies, and she asks Nikki if she wants to watch it. Nikki agrees because she loves the movie too. They laugh and continue to drink more wine. Both women feel buzzed, but they're not drunk. They drink the last of the bottle of wine as the film ends. Natty takes the dirty dishes into the kitchen, and she quickly washes them. When Natalya returns to the living room, she finds Nikki looking at some of her art. You know that John and I really liked your painting, right? I just pretended that I hated it for the show. Nikki lets her know. Natalya smiles. Really? You never talked about it, so I thought you actually hated it. It was so sweet of you to give it to us, Nikki remarks. I really enjoy painting people. I could make you another one? Natty offers. My anniversary with John is coming up. I was going to do a sexy nude photo shoot for him. Oh yeah! But what if you painted a naked portrait of me instead? John would totally love that, Nikki comments. I don't know about painting you nude, Nikki. Don't you think that would be a little weird? No! 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 Natalya questions. We've seen each other in bikinis and lingerie lots of times. This really isn't that different, Nikki points out. You're right! We run around the Divas locker room, practically undressed anyway. Natty agrees. Perfect! I'll take my clothes off and get comfortable while you set up, Nikki declares. Natalya raises an eyebrow. You want to do it now? Yeah! The timing is perfect, Nikki mentions. Natalya nervously sets up her canvas and her paint. She's really not sure why she feels so anxious. Like Nikki previously stated, they have seen each other in various states of undress before. Natty takes a deep breath to calm her nerves. Nikki is laying on Natty's couch with her back against the arm of the seat. Her arms are resting at her sides, and she's looking in Natalya's direction. Are you going to be okay, sitting like that? It will take me a while to draw you. I'm going to start with your face, because it'll take the longest. Painting a face as beautiful as yours will take some time, Natty tells her. Nikki smiles. Oh, that was nice of you to say. Natty turns on some music, and it helps her focus on her artwork. She tries to look at Nikki as an art object instead of a naked woman, but it's not working. After drawing Nikki's face and neck, Natalya turns her attention to Nikki's breast. They're round, perfectly symmetrical, and they fit Nikki's frame nicely. Natty finds herself admiring how good looking that her friend really is. You're looking at me like you want to touch me, Nikki observes. What? Nicole! I am not looking at you that way! Natalya argues. It's okay, Natty, Nikki assures her. How can you say that? Natty questions. We have John and TJ's blessing, Nikki reveals. Natalya puts her paintbrush down. What are you talking about? Well, when you invited just me over, I had a chat with TJ and John. I wanted to know how they would feel if me and you got to know each other just a little bit better, and they were surprisingly on board with the idea. Nikki divulges. I'm speechless, Nicole. I really don't know what to say, Natty responds. Nikki gets off of the couch, and she walks over to where Natalya is painting. She silently grabs her hand and walks Natty back to the couch. Nikki sits next to Natalya, and she can practically feel Natty's rapid heartbeat. She tucks a blonde strand of hair behind Natalya's ear, and she tenderly caresses her face. Nikki slowly leans in and presses her lips to Natty's. She takes her time exploring Natalya's mouth with her tongue. Natty loves how soft and gentle that Nikki feels. Nikki nips at Natalya's bottom lip before ending the kiss. You're a great kisser, Nikki, Natty compliments. I've wanted to kiss you for a long time, Nikki tells her. Natty blushes. Thanks. You are too. Nikki covers Natalya's mouth with her own before she laces kisses down her chest. Natty lets out a low groan when Nikki rubs her nipples between her fingers. Nikki caresses them until they harden. She sucks one of the hardened nubs into her mouth, and a pleasurable sound escapes from Natalya. It's been a while since Natty has been touched intimately. Nikki gently bites Natalya's hard nipple before moving on to the other one. I can't wait to taste more of you, Nikki whispers enticingly. Natty shivers involuntarily, and she feels her panties get wetter at Nikki's words. Nikki places her hand on Natalya's stomach and slowly slides it down to her panties. The anticipation is killing Natty. Nikki can feel how damp that Natalya is, and she loves knowing that she's the cause of it. She, teasingly, touches Natty through her panties. Before Natty can complain, Nikki uses her teeth to remove Natalya's thong. Nikki really shouldn't be surprised that Natty's pussy is just as pretty as the rest of her is. Aww. She spreads Natalya open, and she bites her lip when she sees how wet that Natty is. Nikki runs her fingers up and down Natalya's inner thighs before she starts lightly stroking her sensitive clit. A beautiful moan falls from Natty's mouth, and it's music to Nikki's ears. She really wants to keep hearing those sounds, so Nikki touches her again. Natalya brushes Nikki's long, dark hair out of her face because she wants to look into her seductive eyes. Seeing her absolutely stunning friend in between her legs is turning Natty on so much. Nikki kisses Natalya's clit, and she works her lips all the way down to her entrance. Her mouth is already shiny and slick because Natty is so moist. Nikki licks all the wetness from Natalya's inner lips before making her way back to where she's most sensitive. "God, Nikki!" Natty exclaims. Nikki looks up at Natalya as she flicks her tongue across her clit. Natty lets out another please sound at the sensation. She takes the little bundle of nerves into her warm mouth, and Nikki sucks on it softly at first. Nikki then sucks on it hard, like she just can't get enough. Natalya digs her nails into the couch because she's feeling such immense bliss. She honestly can't remember the last time that she felt this kind of ecstasy. Nikki manages to make Natty feel even better when she slips 2 fingers inside her. She's so slick that her fingers easily slide in and out. Natalya feels dizzy from the dual pleasure that she's receiving. Nikki crooks her fingers and she searches for Natty's G-spot. She knows the exact moment she finds it because Natalya gasps loudly before she starts crying out Nikki's name like a mantra. Her eyes roll into the back of her head and her body starts quivering. "Fuck, Nikki! TJ has never made me feel this good!" Natty says in a breathy tone. Nikki would smirk if she didn't have her mouth completely full. She has to use her hand to hold down Natalya's hips because they keep trying to raise off of the couch. Nikki knows that Natty is very close to orgasm, and she can't wait to see her fall apart beautifully. She crooks her fingers and she starts fucking her faster and harder. Nikki delicately scrapes her teeth against Natalya's clit. And that's all it takes for her to climax. Her legs are trembling and she's speaking gibberish as she completely soaks Nikki's hand and part of the couch with her cum. They both look surprised and impressed at the way that Natty just squirted. After the shock wears off, Natalya blushes because she suddenly feels a little bit embarrassed. Sorry about that. Natty apologizes sheepishly. You have absolutely nothing to be sorry about, Natalya. That was the hottest thing that I've ever seen. Nikki earnestly remarks before she gives Natty a chaste kiss. Natalya deepens the kiss and she doesn't even care that she can taste herself on Nikki's tongue. She gets bolder and she moves her mouth to Nikki's neck. Natty kisses her there before sucking a few bruises into her skin. Nikki purrs and Natalya is sure that she's never heard a prettier sound. She reaches for Nikki's tits and she loves how heavy that they feel in her hands. Natty swirls her tongue around one of her nipples before doing the same thing to the other one. Nikki softly pets Natalya's hair as she encourages her. Natty has never touched another woman, so she's not quite sure what to do. Nikki can sense her hesitation and her doubt, so she wants to assure Natalya that she's doing everything right. She puts her hand between her legs, and she tells Natty how wet that she is. Nikki starts rubbing her clit, and she whispers that she would much rather feel Natalya touching her. Natty pushes her hand aside as she kneels in between Nikki's thighs. She usually overthinks things, so Natalya decides to act without thinking for once. Natty spreads Nikki's pussy open, and she gives her lips a long, slow lick. She's a little bit surprised by how much she enjoys Nikki's taste. Natalya licks her again, and Nikki tells her that she's doing a great job. Natty feels more confident now that she knows that she's on the right track. She slides her tongue up to Nikki's clit, and she puts her whole mouth on it. Nikki is so worked up from getting Natalya off that it's really not going to take her very long to come. While Natty is making Nikki feel good with her mouth, she starts finger fucking herself. Natalya tries her best to copy the way that Nikki sucked on her clit. She alternates between licking and sucking on it vigorously. Nikki's moans rise in volume, and it's making Natty wet again. She strokes her own G-spot, and she reaches her peak a few minutes later. Nikki's legs tighten around Natalya's neck, and she pulls on Natalya's hair as her orgasm washes over her. Natty doesn't stop her assault on Nikki's clit, and that makes her come for a second time. Her entire body shudders, and she eventually pushes Natalya away lightly when she gets too sensitive. "That was incredible, Natty! You're a natural!" Nikki praises. Natalya blushes. "Thank you. So, I think we should probably finish the portrait tomorrow," Nikki mentions. "I almost forgot about that. We will definitely get that done tomorrow," Natty promises. Nikki kisses her. "Yeah, because I'm not quite done with you tonight." The end. This story is entitled Work Me Out, and it was written by True365. Ugh! That's the one persistent thought that trolled through her mind as she watched him. Watched him train. She watched as he assiduously completed his phases of exercise. Cardio, strength, power.
By the power of Grayskull!
She saw through, hopefully, undetected glances behind her in the gym's mirror, how he tore up the indoor track, did pull-ups on the gymnast rings, and completed the snatch with a 350-pound barbell. It may sound dramatic, but if this were a Victorian novel, she'd be one of those, the cliché swooning heroines. Gosh! He was delicious. No! 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 She was not a stalker, although the thought did sneak into her head that this was the 6th time she just happened to be at the same gym facility he was. "Shut up, Conscious!" she hissed, then glanced around furtively, hoping fellow fitness seekers hadn't heard her self-reprimand. Hey! It wasn't her fault that CrossFit had become a cultural phenomenon.
What?
She was just observing the trend, and where she was observing the trend lately, he just always happened to be. Yeah, that was it. The workout of the day was winding down, and he'd long since ditched the Parkway Drive t-shirt he'd been wearing. And she herself had long since ditched the pretense that she was there solely for a workout. That nod to nudity, ladies and gentlemen, had been a sight. Sweat had been dripping, which in turn had soaked his shirt. He'd stripped the t-shirt off nonchalantly, but to her, it had been her own private peep show.
Welcome to the biggest show in sports entertainment, the Peep Show!
Watching expanses of toned, tan skin being revealed had made her a bit heady. The cherry on top, seeing his nicely developed pecs. She hadn't realized before this that she was a chest girl, yet here we were. There was something about the contrast of his long, lean torso against his well-developed chest and arms. A particularly naughty thought just then, that even as brazen she could be at times, she flushed just thinking about in public. As impressed as she was with the revelation of his chest, it's always been his nipples that drew her gaze. Brown and pert, like beacons calling out for her tongue to lave. Woo! Woo! She fanned herself at her thoughts. The last straw came at the end, though, when he was doing an impromptu photo shoot for one, his favorite fancy dietary supplements, to post on social media. Don't even ask her what the whole paleo movement was about. Was he a famous 18th century artist or something? Okay, so she was being facetious, but let's just say the whole thing was beyond her area of expertise. He had just looked so good in that moment, hair in a messy high bun, red shorts slung low on his hips. But it was his smile, that big, beautiful smile that shone even beneath his full beard. She loved it, as he just looked like a lovable puppy. That smile was a mark of the brilliant mind that was lurking beneath the surface. As much as his body fascinated her, it was his mind that did her in. The time she'd interacted with him had always been fun. He had a dry, deadpan, quirky sense of humor that made her laugh. Also, the way he analyzed and broke down certain situations intrigued her as she watched it play out. She didn't always agree with his viewpoints, but he always maintained her respect. He always intrigued her. Screw it! She was going in. She tossed the bag of baked potato chips she'd been munching on and made her move. The sweat-drenched man was rifling through his gym bag, looking for a change of clothes in the deserted locker room. Seth Rollins swung his head at the blur of movement that appeared in his peripheral vision, his face lighting up in recognition. He smiled. Hey! AJ! What's up? Seth was only able to give a surprised grunt before the small, dark-haired woman, without a word, pressed herself against him, slinging an arm around his neck to pull him in for a breath-stilling kiss, her lips covering his own. Soft lips fluidly moving, continually sipping at his top lip, teasing, as if to draw it into her own. Surprised that her actions had him stock still for a few beats, but his answering fire was quickly sparked by her flickering at the corners of his mouth with her tongue. That was when he flipped the script. Seth lifted AJ off the ground. She, in turn, eagerly wrapped her gray leggings-clad limbs around his waist. He then pressed her against a nearby wall, them chest to chest. He hungrily began to ravish her mouth, dipping his tongue repeatedly into her honeyed entrance. Seth soon growled in frustration, though. He needed to taste more of her. He reluctantly tore his mouth away, AJ moaning in protest. Seth quickly buried his mouth into her neck, sucking the tender flesh between his teeth. AJ whimpered, sliding her eyes shut as she threw her head back, giving him even more access. I wondered how long it would take you to come to me, Seth muttered between kisses to AJ's throat. Her eyes flew open at his statement, then slid to meet his. You knew I was here? Seth just gave AJ an arch look and a soft smile. He laughed. You're tiny, but even you aren't inconspicuous, ducking behind exercise equipment to hide. AJ groaned and hid her face in his shoulder. Seth stroked her hair in comfort. Don't be embarrassed. I wanted you to find me, Seth sued. AJ reared her head back in incredulity. What? Seth raised a brow. Who do you think got our friends to drop hints about wherever I'd be working out? AJ narrowed her eyes at him, then sighed in exasperation. So why not cut out the middleman and just tell me yourself? She queried. Seth drew out his response, tapping her nose as he answered. AJ crinkled said appendage at his touch. Because, pretty little miss, each time we spoke, you were shy around me. Seth's sentence was interrupted by AJ grabbing his hand and biting the finger he used on her nose. Ow! He exclaimed, wagging his bruised digit in an effort to alleviate the sharp sting. AJ smirked. That's what you get! I'm not two. You don't need to touch in order to elaborate on a point. Seth's words about being shy then suddenly sunk in. Wait! Me? Shy? She scoffed, affronted. Seth countered. Yes, April Jeanette! You shy. That's why I thought if we accidentally met at the gym, We'd be in a stress-free environment outside of work. We'd be comfortable to talk. Then these opportunities to meet turned into scouting missions by you, and I thought, who am I to judge? Seth then shrugged. Besides, I wanted to see where they led. AJ smacked Seth's shoulder playfully. You jerk! You were watching me squirm! He laughed. Nah, it was fun watching how your mind worked. AJ laughed sardonically. Yeah? You're real clever, huh? AJ grabbed Seth's hair in a punishing grip, bringing his face to hers for a bruising kiss. They continued to exchange fierce kisses until Seth pulled away to rest his forehead against her own, panting against her lips. I need more of you! Seth ground out. He fixed a hungry gaze to hers. Do you trust me? He asked. AJ looked back at him with wide brown eyes that never wavered. Yes, I do!
Yes! Yes! Yes!
Seth planted another quick kiss to her. He then skimmed his fingertips under the hem of her sports top, lifting it, feathering his fingers along each inch of skin that became exposed. Seth lifted AJ's top completely, leaving her bare to his gaze. He drank in her lithe form. Flared hips drifted up into a contoured waist. The golden skin, her beautiful breast. AJ moved to cover herself, but Seth caught her hands gently before she could. You know? You never have to hide from me. AJ lowered her hands. All the while, her gaze never left his. Seth then gathered her into his arms. Her skin soft and warm beneath his palms. He leaned down to kiss along her collarbone and over the tops of her breast. He nuzzled between them, his beard tickling her. She sighed at the sensation. Next thing she knew, he'd drawn her nipple into his mouth. AJ gasped at the unexpected contact. Encouraged by her sounds, Seth cupped and kneaded her rounded globe with his long fingers. He proceeded to then suck her nipple even deeper into the hot cavern of his mouth. AJ moaned and arched her back into his touch. Seth continued his ministrations, then switched his focus to her other breast, giving it the same level of pleasurable detail. Seth placed a final kiss to her chest, then started to pull away. AJ objected to this action. No! 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 She said languorously, already deliciously weak from the attention he was lavishing on her body. Seth cradled her face within his palms, touching their foreheads together. You remember, I asked if you trusted me. Seth's words ghosting over lips. AJ reached up to place a quick kiss on him. Yes! Seth smiled at her. Good girl! He pressed his mouth to her ear, which began a trail of hot, open-mouthed kisses down her body. When he'd reached the waistline of her leggings, he looked up at her, asking for a silent permission. AJ looked down at him from the curtain of her dark hair. She nodded. Seth drew them, along with her panties down and off. He groaned at the sight of AJ fully bared before him. He reverentially ran his fingertips along her toned thighs, up to her hips, where he then spanned her waist with his hands. AJ then moaned at Seth's next move. He leaned forward and buried his face in the apex of her thighs, inhaling her scent. AJ gasped at being wholly blindsided at the filling of his mouth on her most intimate of parts. Seth nuzzled her mound with his nose, then started to lap at her pussy lips. Oh, shit! AJ exclaimed. She involuntarily bucked her hips against his face. The hand she had threaded in Seth's hair tightened reflexively. The pain didn't faze him one iota, though. He just hooked an arm under each of AJ's legs. He then stood up slowly, adjusting her thighs over his shoulders. AJ squeaked at the new positioning, trying to find her purchase, but with nothing to grasp onto. just the flat of her back against the smooth plaster wall. "Oh my God, Seth!" He grinned up at her from his now fully standing position. "Like the view from up there? 'Cause I sure do from down here." AJ just squeezed her thighs around his head in answer. Seth laughed huskily at the sassiness of her response. He kissed her again intimately, reaching around her to gently spread her lips. She suckled her clit into his mouth. AJ whined at this bold move, feeling a heat bloom within her, then a pulsing. At each pull of his lips, there felt as if there were an invisible thread of throbbing pleasure running from her pussy to the tips of her breast. AJ moaned long and loud. "Ah! Yes! Just like that!" Seth was bolstered by her noises of encouragement. He braced his forearms against the wall and held AJ's legs even firmer. He gave long licks to her smooth labia, prompting tingling sensations there. AJ sighed and gripped his hair again, then braced her other hand against the wall in a semblance of grounding herself from the sensations flooding her. Seth set about establishing a rhythm, alternating between licks, sucks, and ghost-like bites. He'd exposed the nub of her clitoris, the bundle of nerves on full display. AJ felt the tension build, winding her up. She whimpered and ground his face against her harder, in a nebulous effort to amplify the beats of feeling centered there. Seth took that as his cue and increased his speed. That's when she burst. AJ shuddered as her orgasm roared through her in waves. She felt her body go lax. Seth brought her down carefully from his shoulders and then held her. She smiled up at him with a sparkle in her brown eyes. "That was something, huh?" she said on an exhaled laugh. Seth grinned back at her. It was something, all right. AJ's face soon then settled into an earnest expression. She reached up to touch his cheek. "Thank you! What just happened between us, I never dreamed would have happened at all, much less here and so soon." Seth grabbed her hand and kissed the inside of her wrist. "I don't regret any of this. I really like you, AJ. I like your feistiness, your adventurous spirit, your unexpected moments of shyness." She groaned and hid her face in his chest when he said that. "Also, you have a devious mind that I totally appreciate. I mean, being stalked like prey never felt sexier," he teased. AJ then looked up at him with an adorable pout. "Keep up the comedy act, Rollins, and this..." She cupped his harness through his shorts. "Won't be taken care of any time in the near future." Seth groaned at the feel of her hand on his cock. Okay, I'll behave." AJ patted his cheek with a smirk. "Good boy." She then looked around the locker room and said, "What do we do now?" Seth linked their hands together and offered, "Well, before this, I was going to my hotel room to unwind after my workout." AJ's face fell at what she perceived as Seth's move for them to part ways. He saw the array of emotions fit across her face. "Hey, you didn't let me finish. I planned to hang out in my room, and I wondered if you wanted to come with? We could play some video games. Or share our comic stash."
Get those nerds! Nerd! Nerd!
AJ's face brightened at the suggestion. "I'd love that! But first, we need to get clean from all the strenuous exercise we did in and out of the gym today." She drew him by the hand towards the showers. Seth's smile reappeared. "Yes, ma'am! Today was a good day." The end. Thank you for listening to episode 50 of Wrestlerotica. We hope that you enjoyed this week's stories. If you enjoyed this week's stories, please be sure to rate and review us on iTunes. Visit us elsewhere online, including Facebook, Instagram, Tumblr, and as always, our official website, WrestleRoticaPod.com. Thank you and have a good week.